Able to semester?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, it is clear, sir.
Okay. Hi, Ram. Fine. So let's start new topic today. Last topic we have is macros. Okay. So what is macros? Did you heard somewhere? Anyone? Anywhere? In some other places also it may come.
Yeah, it reduces the multiple steps and does the work easily.
It reduces the multiple steps and make your work was so easy. Correct. What else? Anyone? Anything? Okay. Yes, whatever he said was correct. Generally, macros will be if you have any repetition works are there. So same task you are repeating again and again. To avoid this repetition, you're going to make it easy with the macros. Okay. So we are going to avoid the repetition work. The main thing. If we avoid this repetition work, yes, automatically it will save your time and your quality also will increase. Quality of work also will increase. So repetition means, for example, I gave it one task to you saying that I have 10 data sets are there. Print these 10 data sets. What you will do? I give 10 data sets. Data set 1, data set 2, data set 3. Like this 10 data sets are there. I gave a very simple data step, print these 10 data sets. Immediately what we will do? You write a proc print step. Proc print data is equal to Okay, data set 1. Same for data set 2. Same for data set 3. Data set 4, data set 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 times you have to write same proc step. But for different data sets. Which I'm writing the 10 times. I'm doing proc print only, right? But for different data sets. Can I avoid writing the multiple times? Can I make it is only one time? If you do it like this, it's a macro. So you can avoid this multiple times of work. You can avoid this repetition of work, repetition of writing the code. So it will take the time, right? Taking the time for writing the program for execution also. Instead of that, if you write it only one time, one line, then it's so simple. See, for example, here 2 lines of program for one data set. So 10 means 10 into 2, 20 lines of program you have to write it just for printing the run. If you are writing the 20 lines, if you do it only in 2 lines, is it simple? So that's what macros will do. Then how to write a macro? How can I convert my normal program into a macro program? My normal base SAS program, this is basic program, right? Base SAS program into a macro program. How? So I'll tell you how to convert a normal base SAS program into macro program. So before I tell, so let me give one scenario first of all. So in that scenario, okay, for that scenario, you tell me the normal base SAS program. Then later I will tell you how to convert the normal base program into a macro program. Okay, let me give one scenario. So this is the scenario you have. Okay, see the scenario. Let us assume I have a different data sets. 3, 4, 5 data sets are there. For all these 5 data sets, see the requirement. Write them all these 4 steps. Means for all the 5 data set, you have to, for example, for SAS and class data set. For class data set, you have to write all the 4 steps. Again, for by data set, you have to write all the 4 steps. For air data set, for test data set, for demo data set. For same data set, you have to repeat the same 4 steps. Okay? Clear? Yeah. First do it for one data set. So here again, you are going to repeat the same task. It is also repetition task because same 4 steps you are repeating for all the data sets. Okay. So as of now, first you write a program with a normal basis program. The next I'll tell you how to convert that into a macro program. Okay. Yeah. Can you tell me the programs? So what the first thing I want? Create a temporary data set from the given input data set. Can someone tell me the program for this one? So this is your input data set now. Yeah. Data. Data. Data.
Class.
Data class.
Semicolon. Set.
Set.
SAS help dot class.
Class. Class.
Run.
But temporary data set means if you create in a work library, it's going to be temporary. Then see, one temporary data set you created. First step means that. Now second step. Create a new data set. Create a new data set with only variables list from the above temporary data set. So now this is your input data set now. From this data set, you have to create a new data set. It should contain only variables names list. What are the variables you have? For example, you have name, sex, age, height, weight. Okay, different variables are there. Okay, so these variables list I need. Now can I get it? We remember I gave a task also on this one.
Proc contents,
Proc contents.
keep variables,
Proc contents.
keep variable variables like that.
Tell me the program for me. You will write a proc content right like this.
No,
Proc contents for what? Which data set? What is your input data set?
SAS, no, class.
Class is my input data set.
Hmm.
Okay. So from this data set, I want to create an output data set, right?
Yes.
What to use?
Out is equal to
Out equal to
class 1 data set. Class 1.
Class plan.
Within the brackets, keep variables.
Within the bracket.
Keep variables.
Keep
Like
the
label name or
variable.
something. Exactly.
Let me run first. Let me show you what is that variable. Okay.
Yeah.
You cannot write simply like that. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
For content. See the content of the data set. It is printing in the output window and also it's created the data set. Class underscore contents created. So I need a list of variables. Okay. So this is the list of variables I have. Age, height, name, sex, height. So what is the variable name here? Variable name is name. Okay, this is the label. You are not supposed to take the label. You have to take the variable name. Okay. So now you keep it. Keep variable name alone. Okay. So it is printing in output window also, but not required. I don't want to print in output window. Just data set is enough. So I have a list of variables. Okay. So let me do no print. So it won't print in the log window. It only directly create a data set. Okay. So you run. So it's not printing. When you run, you only created the data set. So this is the second step. Okay. Create a new data set with only variables list from the above temporary data set. Create a new data set with the first two observations from the above data set. Create a new data set with first two observations from the above temporary data set. Means, this is your input data set. From this data set, you have to create another data set. It should contain only first two observations in my output data set. Clear? How can I do it? Understand, right? Create a new data set with the first two observations from the above data set. This is your above output data set, right? Yeah.
Drop.
Okay. How drop will work? Tell me.
Same, sir. We have to drop that remaining three, na, then retain the.
This is your data set. Okay. This is your input data set. I need only first two observation and output data
Ops
set.
is equal to 2.
By using options.
Ops.
Tell me how. Data. Some class 1 data set I'm creating. Set.
Class content.
Underscore content is my input data set.
Ops
First
ODS
ops is equal to 1.
Okay. First ops is equal to 1.
Ops is equal to 2.
equal to 2.
Ops is equal to 2. So what you will get? So first two second observations will get as an output. Correct? First two observations will get output. Simple. Any other way? If write ops is equal to also same, it will give from first only. Same meaning. Done? There is nothing difference. If you write first ops is equal to 1 and did not write also, by default it will read from the first observation.
So
Okay.
in this one, we can use this drop statement also, sir.
How you use a drop statement? Tell me.
In class, drop the remaining three variables. We can write the three variables.
Here, what is the variables are there? I'm not asking about the variables, right? These are observations.
Okay.
Keep and drop will work on a variable. These are not variable names, right? If you have variable 1, variable 2, variable 3, if you have variables, I can drop it. These are observations. In this data set, these are observations, right?
Okay, okay, sir.
How keep and drop will work? Won't work here. Okay. Any other way we can do it this one? Anyone? We can do it in another way as well. Anyone?
Underscore n underscore.
Yes. How to use underscore and underscore?
Yeah, if
If statement.
If
underscore n underscore
is equal to 2.
great less greater 2 equal to 2 less than or equal to 2.
Equal to 2.
if you mention equal to 2 means
Only 2 second observation it will come. So
Yeah.
less than or equal to.
2 observations will get.
you have to keep it less than or equal to 2. So wherever this condition satisfied, so those observations will come into output data set. See? So remember guys, underscore n underscore and underscore error underscore are automatic variables will create at the time of background. While reading, for example, we are reading from this data set. While reading from input data set to output data set, at the time of reading, at the background, these two automatic variables will create. So if I'm reading the first observation, the underscore and underscore value is 1. I'm reading the second observation, the underscore and underscore value is 2. I'm reading the third observation, fourth observation, so 4, 5, 6. Like this, in the background, this underscore and underscore value will create. Now I'm checking the condition, I'm filtering the condition wherever the underscore and underscore value is less than or equal to 2. So which scenarios will come? First observation, obviously, underscore and underscore value is 1. So 1 less than or equal to 2. Condition satisfied. So first observation will come. Next, reading the second observation. That time underscore and underscore value is 2. So 2 less than or equal to 2. Condition satisfied? Yes. So that observation also will come. Next, 3 less than or equal to 2. Condition failed. So this observation won't come in a output. Same 4 less than or equal to 5 less than or equal to. We'll check every observation where the condition satisfied. So those observations only will come into the output data set. You can write it like this also. Then output shortcut I write it actually. Condition satisfied. If condition, then output. So this observation will come to output. Okay. In a simpler way, directly I can write it like this as well. Remember this thing we already discussed in if else condition topic there. Okay. So in both the ways you can write it. Next. So this is the third step. Clear everyone? So the fourth step, print the temporary data set with only 5 observations. The class is my temporary data set, first temporary data set. I want to print this data set with only 5 observations. With only 5 observations. Tell me. How can I print only 5 observations?
Proc print
Proc print. Data equal,
data class data is equal to class 1.
data equal to class. First
Yeah.
5 observations.
Yeah,
mean-
class, yeah.
First 5 observations meaning
OBS 5.
O base is equal to
Ops
5.
is equal to 5. Yeah.
Simple. We'll print the first 5.
Yeah.
printed only 5 observations. Then all the 4 steps. First step, we are creating the temporary data set. Second step, from the above data set, we are creating the list of variables. Third step, only first 2 observations. Okay, and take it only one method. I'm taking this method. Fourth step, printing the data set. Clear? So now, for one data set, you wrote it 4 steps. Now, same I have to repeat for all other data sets also. Now, additionally, I'm making it a little complex now. Let's see now. So, for example, now for class data set, in the third step, you took it only 2 observations, right? The observation limit I gave as a 2. And fourth step, I ask you to print only 5 observations. Now, for example, now if you take a by data set as input, instead of by, let us take cars data set. Okay. If you take the cars data set as input, I need observation limit. The third step, instead of 2, I need a 5 observations. Here, previously you printed 5 observations, I need to print 8 observations. So what we'll do, if you want to do it for cars data set, again you'll write all the steps. Agree? All the 4 steps you'll write it, the program.
Yes, sir.
Observe carefully everyone here. What changes I'm doing? For example, instead of class data set, for cars data set, if I'm going to do it, what changes I'm doing? Okay. Later it will be useful. Yeah. So previously for class dataset, now I'm doing for cars dataset. Your input dataset is cars. So let us first step is I'm creating the temporary dataset. See, one temporary dataset is created. Done. Now from cars dataset, we are going to create a cars underscore content. I need list of variables. Run the program. We'll get a list of variables. Done. Now from this list of variables, what is my requirement? I need only first 5 observations. So these 5 observations alone I need. So what is your input data set now? Class underscore contents. From class underscore candidates, we are going to create a class 1 data set. Okay, I need only first 5 observations. So from 2 to 5, I'm changing. See, you'll get first 5 observations. And last 4th step, I want to print only 8 observations. Print only 8 observations. Okay, see, it is printing the first 5 observations. Sorry, 5 not 8 observations. First 8 observations. Okay. Now you did it for the cars data set. If you want to do it for one more data set, again 4 steps will repeat. For example, if you want to do it for air data set, again for air data set, same 4 steps. You want to do it some other test data set, you have to repeat again same 4 steps. Demo data set, again 4 steps. Can I say this is a repetition task? It's a repetitive work.
Yes, we can say so.
Yeah.
This type of repetition work we are going to avoid using macros. Okay. Now I'll make this work easy. See how I'm making easy with the macros. Okay. So generally your macro program, what it contains. Okay. If you observe in your macro program, majorly you will find 2 things. One is macro, second is macro variable. These 2 are important concepts in the macro. Okay, one is macro, second is macro variables. So in this macro, you have to know first how to define the macro, means how to create a macro. How to define the macro? The first step you have to do it is defining. Define the macro. How to define the macro? See the syntax, percentile, macro. Mention the macro name you are creating. You can give the macro name anything. Semicolon. Close your macro. Percentage emit. Okay. So in between, you can write it anything. Any data steps or proc steps or proc SQL steps. So like this, you can define the macro. First, you have to create a one macro. Your macro name is this one. Percentile macro name, and close with percentile MI. So you're starting the macro, you're closing the macro. So with this, you're going to create a macro. You are defining the macro. Once you define a macro, as per the requirement, you have to call the macro. How to call the macro? Percentile macro name. So if you call the macro, if you run this program, it will go to here and this macro going to be executed. This code going to be executed. Whenever you call, this code will execute.
Each program has different macro we have to write, sir.
Each program is each scenario. Whenever you are required macro, I'll show you for above scenario, you will understand.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the main part in the macro. You are defining and you are calling. And one more important thing is macro variables. What is this variables? Okay, this is not data set variables. Okay, data set variables are different, macro variables are different. So these variables you are creating, these variables are creating as part of macro creation. We are creating the variables are part of macro creation. Okay. And these variables also, which are reusable variables. Generally, data set variables will be available only in particular data. Now we are creating the macro variables. Those are reusable. You can use it in a different places in the code wherever you have required. Okay. Then how to call these macro variables? Always once you create it, when you are calling, start with ampersand. Okay. Then give some macro variable name. Okay. Always end with the dot. Anyway, dot is not mandatory, but make a practice to use a dot also, always. Okay, you may confuse a little bit here, how to create a macro variable. Okay, one of the method is percentile let method is the percentile let. Using percentile let, you can create a macro variable. Okay. Okay. You may not, you have a little confusion was there, I understand. Let me clear your confusions with a above example. Okay. Then you can easily relate it, what I was showing in just now. See. So this is the scenario I have, right? Now for this scenario, I have to write a macro code. I already write a base class code, but instead of it's a repetition work, I'm going to avoid this repetition work using macros. So whenever if you want to convert a normal base program into a macro program, okay, I'm going to give some 5 steps. If you follow these 5 steps, you can convert any program into a macro program. So this is the approach you need to follow. These are the 5 steps. Always you have to keep it in mind. If you follow these 5 steps, you can convert any program into a macro program. Read the steps carefully. First one. First, understand your requirement. Second, write a base class code. Third, identify the parameters that are changing and convert them into macro variables. Fourth, convert base code into macro code. Fifth, as per requirement, call the macro variables and macro program. Okay. Let's see by step. First, understand the requirement. Is it everyone understand your requirement? So this is your requirement, right? Your scenario is for all these 5 data sets, all these 4 steps needs to be executed. For all these 5 data sets, these 4 steps needs to be executed. Clear? Everyone is clear with the requirement? Anyone not?
Clear, sir.
So first step was done. We have to understand the requirement. What is the second step? Write a base class code. Write it for this scenario, write some code. Already we write it for one data set already. Let us assume we already wrote for a class data set. We already wrote it, all the 4 steps. Write some base code. Okay. Done. That is the second step. Understanding the requirement, done. Okay. So second step also done. Now third step. Your base class code also you wrote it. Okay, what is the third step? See, this is the important step. Identify the parameters that are changing. Now in this code, what are the parameters are changing every time when you do it for other data sets? When you do it for other scenarios, if you want to run, what are the parameters are changing in this code? You have to identify them and convert them into macro variables. I'll tell you how to convert them into macro variables. First, you guys identify and tell me in this code what are the parameters are changing every time.
Data sets names.
Good. See, every time data set name is changing, right? Now I'm doing for a class data set. So next scenario, I want to do it for cars data set, for air data set, test data set, demo data set. So every time data set name will change. So identify that one though. Okay. First is class. Okay. One parameter you identified. Next. What else are changing in this code?
Observations.
Observation means what is changing in the code? Observation is where you are telling observation.
If condition is changing,
Okay, this number is changing, correct?
yeah, number is changing.
Here, in this scenario, you kept it for 2. In the next scenario, 5, 3, 6, every time this number is changing. So can I say this is a second parameter? This observation limit is changing. Okay, good. What else?
Print
Top print ops will be also changing.
ops,
Participants.
This is also changing, correct? This print count also changing every day. Okay, 3 parameters were identified. Still any more?
that's also.
That's it. Huh?
Yes, sir.
No, still one more is there.
No prints.
No print is the option, right? Why it will change every time?
Library for the
Yes. See, input data set library name. For these 3 scenarios, library name is Hazel. When you come this scenario, it's a work, right?
Okay.
So can I say in this code, this library name also will change? Clear? So total 4 parameters were identified in the above code, which are changing for my requirement. Okay. Now what they told? Convert them into macro variables. So in this code, convert them into macro variables. Before converting, first you have to create a macro variable, right? How to create? One of the method is %let method. Okay. Let's see how to create %let. Give me the macro variable name. I can give any name. For example, my macro variable name is library. Library equal to SAS. Simple. Now I created a macro variable called library. It has a value of SAS. Simple. If you %let macro variable name, that you have your pass some parameter. Now this macro variable have this value. Now what I'm going to do? I'm going to convert your macro variable into your parameter. Okay. What are the parameters are changing, right? You have to convert them into macro variables. Means I'm going to replace your what are the parameter you identified. I'm going to replace with your macro variable. How to replace? Percentile macro variable name dot. See, always start with ampersand macro variable name dot. This is how you have to call the macro variable. Okay. Similarly, create one more macro variable. %let. For example, my macro variable name is dataset name. Okay. Now, wherever the class is there, replace with macro variable. So here, every time it is changing, wherever class is there, ampersand macro variable name dot. 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 Do you understand, guys, why I'm doing this one? So tomorrow, now I'm doing for class data set. Tomorrow, if you want to do it for cars data set, replace with car. Here, everywhere cars will replace. If you do it for air data set, it will replace with air. If we change here as some test data set, it will change for test. That's the reason we are identifying and we are replacing with the macro variables. Okay. Ampersand macro variable name dot. Ampersand macro variable name dot. Ampersand macro variable name. See, everywhere we are replaced, wherever the class is there, wherever I want to replace, there I was replaced with a macro variable. Okay, and you have one more parameter. Create a macro variable for this one as well. What can I give you the macro variable name? I can give it for anything. Well, it is also my macro variable name is observation limit. History. So here you have a two, right? Here I want to replace it macro variable name, but ampersand macro variable name. So here also 5. Percentile left equal to 5. So this macro variable also in your code replace it. Ampersand macro variable name dot. Clear? That's it. That is the main third step. You have to identify the parameters, and those parameters you have to replace with your macro variables. You have to convert them into macro variables. Clear? Third step. So this is important. If you understand this step, is simple. Remaining is done. Clear? Any doubts here? Anyone? 4 macro variables you are created for the 4 parameters which you are identified. And those parameters you are replaced in your CSS code.
Sudarshan,
Yeah.
can you please explain the percentage let part again?
Okay. You identified the parameters, right? For example, you identify 4 parameters: cell, class, 2, 5. Now these parameters in the given above code, I want to replace with the macro variables. How can I create a macro variables? One of the method is percentile let method.
Okay.
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 So how percentile let method I can create percentile let, give the macro variable name. This macro variable name I can give it any name. I can give your name, my name as well. Okay. Macro variable name equal to, then pass the parameter value which you are identified.
Okay.
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 So now, this is a method. Okay. If you run this code, there should be a macro variable could be created, library created, and it has a value of SASL. Now this is a macro variable I'm using in my code. Why I'm using in my code? Okay. Why I'm doing this one? Okay. You will understand going forward also. Tomorrow I want to, this is for first scenario, I'm running the code. Tomorrow I want to do it for another scenario where my library is 1. Just a replacement of SASL. Or else you write it one more step also. Let us assume it quickly work. Now if you run for a work means, instead of SASL, you run for work now. Run. So what going to happen? So wherever the library is there, you're going to replace with your work. You don't need to change your code. You can change it here only. Okay. That's the reason we are creating the macro variable. We are creating the macro variable, and that macro variable, we are updating your code.
Okay. And every time you have to use ampersand when
Yes,
you use.
that is how you have to call. But to call the macro variable, always ampersand macro variable name dot.
Okay.
If you call like this only, whatever the macro variable is given here, it will come and resolve it. Okay.
Okay.
So that is the third step. So we are done with the third step. You are identified the parameters which are changing and you are converted them into macro variables. Okay. Next is convert your base code into macro. How to write a macro code? What I told you. First, you have to define the macro. How to define the macro? Percentile macro, give the macro name, close with percentile mn. In between, you can write all the steps. And later, as per requirement, you can call the macro. First, you have to define the macro. See, first I'm defining the macro. How to define a macro? Percentile macro. For example, my macro name is test. Close this macro. Only 4 steps required, right? In this macro. Macro, so percentage, mn. That's it. You are defined the macro. You are creating the macro now. Your macro code is ready.
Then why you have changed the ds underscore name dot?
That this is macro variable name, right? This is defining the macro. I'm all these 4 steps I'm keeping in one name under one macro. That's called macro. So test is your macro.
But here we have to write the base code, na sir.
There is no base code now. There is no base code. You are converted your base code into macro code. That's it. This is your macro code. Okay. Now, see, you are defined a macro. You converted a base code into macro code. That's the 4th step. Just you have to add a percentile macro name, close with percentile mn and macro name. Done. Now, 4th step is see, as per requirement, call the macro variables and macro program. So what is my requirement? For example, first my requirement is for a SAS self class dataset, I want to do it this way. So first call the macro variables for this scenario if you want to do it. Okay. I'm giving the macro variable values and now call the macro. How to call the macro? How to call the macro? Defining and then as per requirement, you have to call the macro. How to call the macro? Percentile macro name. Okay. Here percentile, what is my macro name is? Test is the my macro. Done. So first you defined one macro for your scenario. You created one macro. Run the program. It won't execute now. You created a macro called test. Now see, there's a test macro is created in the work library. So you can see one folder called macros. So there's a test macro is created with. Okay. Now for this scenario, so what are the macro variable values I'm passing? SAS self class observation limit 5. Okay. 1 second, guys. 1 second. Variables. Now run the code. This one. Now see, there is a 4 macro variables are created. Library, dataset name, observation limit, print. And this has a values like for library has SAS self, dataset name class, observation limit 2, print 5. Okay. Now I'm going to call the macro. When you call the macro, what's going to happen? Okay, immediately wherever the test macro you are calling, right? So your cursor immediately will go here. It will go to here. It start executing from here. First step. Data. What is the data set name? What is the macro variable name you given? Class. So it's going to resolve as a class. Set. What is the library macro variable value given? SASL. Dot. What is the data set name? Class. So it's going to resolve as a data class. Set SASL dot class run. So it will resolve this macro variable and it will run the step. Similarly, next proc contents, next data step and proc. Wherever the macro variables are there, resolve to the respective values, and then particular step will be executed. See, if you want, I'm running it. So as of now, nothing is there, right? Now I'm calling the macro. Go and check the log. See, and a single run, one step. All the 4 steps are executing. When I call the macro, so the first step from the SASL class dataset, work library class dataset is created. See, the class dataset is created. Again, from the class dataset, we created the class underscore contents dataset. From the class underscore contents, you created the class 1 dataset. Okay. Now see. Last step, class dataset, printing the file directions. All the 4 steps are executed. Simple. Now, if you do it for, now I did it for this data, this step, correct? For this scenario, first scenario. Now, if I want to do it for, let us assume, for air dataset, I want to do it. What you will do? Will you write all full program again? What do you have to do?
Create more macro variables.
So what changes?
Write macro variables, sir.
Just you will change this macro variable.
Instead of SASL, you have to
So only this 4th step you are going to execute. As per requirement, change the macro variables and the macro program. Call the macro variables and macro program. So for this scenario, SASL, your data set name is air. Your observation limit is 3. And your print count is 10. Okay. Now it was replaced. Your live now it's going to be your library name is SASL, dataset name air, observation 3, print 5, print 10. Okay. Now call the macro. So when you call the macro, automatically your cursor will go above and start executing step by step. For which scenario now it is going to resolve for this type. These macro variables. See? Single, only one step. If I want to call the macro, all the 4 steps are executed. See, from SASL dataset, air dataset you are created. From air dataset, air contains you are created. It contains the list of variables. I have only 2 variables. From the air contains air 1 dataset you are created. See? Last step, you printed the 10 observations. Simple, that's it. Now you can do it for any scenario. Now you'll give me any scenario, any data set, anything. I want to do it for cars data set also same. I want to do it for some buy data set also same way. Now, for example, I want to do it for already cars there, right? Let us assume that my data set name is buy. If you want to do it for this scenario, what to do? If you want to do it for buy data set.
Dataset name is going to buy.
They will be changed.
So only these things have to change, right?
Yeah.
Macro variable names will change. Data library lab SASL only. Your data set name is by. Observation limit is 5. Print 8. Okay. So update your macro variables. Then call the macro. So when you call macro, see, no need to write the code again and again. 4 steps are executed. That's it. So this is how for any scenario you can write a macro program. You have to follow these 5 steps. Follow these 5 steps, your work is done. Understand the requirement, write a basis code. The main third step is you have to identify the parameters which are changing and convert them into macro variables. So this is the main step. If you done this step was clearly, then it will be simple. Okay, simple. Then after that, convert macro base code into macro code. Very simple. Nothing. Fourth step is percentile macro. Give the macro name. You have to define the macro. Percentile element macro name. Then fifth step is as per requirement, call the macro variables and macro program. Okay, clear, everyone? That's it.
Sudarshan, can you explain the other methods to creating the macro variables?
Yeah, that I'll explain tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, other method of 5 methods into that. We just discuss a lesson related method. We have 4 more methods at it. We'll discuss tomorrow separate.
Okay.
Up to here, everyone is clear how to create a macro program. So this is the main thing. If you understand this thing, simple remaining all this. Clear? Any doubts, anyone? Can I give one simple task? Everyone has to do this task. Let me give one task today. Complete this task and come tomorrow. So it's very simple, easy task. Write one macro code and okay. See the scenario. I have 4 data sets. Okay, so for these 4 data sets, these 3 steps you have to execute. Print each data set. Okay, whenever you printing, for example, for choose data set, I want to print only for 5 observations. By data set, only 6 observations, 10 observations. First step, print. Second step, write a proc content. Third step, see from the above permanent data set, create a temporary data set and create a new variable called test and give the value as yes. Okay. Yeah. So this is simple. Okay. Everyone is confusing here. Create a new variable called test and give the value as test. Alias yes. From the above temporary data set, for example, from above temporary data set. From above permanent data set. For example, my permanent data set is star set data. From this, what I have to create? I have to create one temporary data set. What I ask, create a new variable called test and give the value as x. So your test is the variable name and this is the value. See, like this has to come. Test and yes. Check why yes is not coming correctly. Interesting. So let's see, test variable, the value is came. So like this has to come. Okay. So for this, you have to write a program. Macro code you have to write. Clear? Follow the same above I give approach, right? 5 steps. Follow those 5 steps. Write a macro code for this scenario and come. Okay, don't miss this task. Okay, please do it everyone. And come tomorrow. Okay. Fine.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay. So that's it for today. So tomorrow we'll discuss few more topics. The macros. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,